If you're moving to Boston and you're still trying to hone in on the right neighborhood for you and figuring out where you might see yourself living in the Boston area and considering Dorchester, great news for you. This video is going to be a breakdown of what's going on in Dorchester, what there is to do, and just overall what that lifestyle looks like when it comes to living in Boston. So let's get into it. Hey there, welcome to the channel or welcome back. My name is Jacob Peistrup, and if you're someone who is moving to Boston, whether it's Dorchester or another part in the city or the suburbs, and you want some help with the process of buying a house or signing a lease here, get in touch with me, send a text, send an email, give me a call, whatever works for you. Let's get in touch and let's get that conversation started so we can get you here to Boston and possibly Dorchester. So if you're moving to Boston, looking at Dorchester, and you want to live in Dot, that's what people call it for short, we are talking all about Dorchester in this video. So Dorchester is a really big neighborhood in Boston down south, and it's actually the biggest neighborhood in Boston. It's got a different feel than the rest of the city, and it's about the same size as Cambridge. Just to give you a feel of how big it is, it's the largest neighborhood in Boston. So Dorchester is a very up-and-coming neighborhood. There is a lot of new construction, new development, redevelopment. You know, it's a very rapidly changing area, and there's a lot of people coming into Dorchester, people who are moving into the area, and there's lots of rehabbed houses and apartments, new developments going on, mixed use and commercial space, new apartment buildings. There's a lot of stuff going on in Dorchester. Dorchester is the biggest neighborhood of Boston, so it is huge. It is about the same size as Cambridge, just to give you a feel of comparison. So Dorchester is Boston's biggest neighborhood. There is a lot to do and see in Dorchester, and it has a lot of different pockets within Dorchester that all have their own different style. Now, Dorchester actually used to be its own separate town before it was annexed by Boston. So because of that, you know, you still have some remnants of that where Dorchester kind of feels like its own area. It doesn't feel like you're in the city of Boston, even though you are. So it has a different feel than being in downtown Boston. It has more of a neighborhood kind of feel to it, but you are still in the city of Boston if you live in Dorchester. Dorchester, like I said, is very up and coming. There's lots of development going on, and it is actually the #1 most diverse neighborhood in Boston. Now, that's not me trying to steer you. That is based off of data and statistics. If you want to check out niche.com, that is a great website. They rank Dorchester as the #1 most diverse part of Boston. So like I said, Dorchester is huge. It's got a lot of different areas and communities within it, and it was also its own area before it was annexed by Boston, and it kind of became part of Boston in pieces. So it was kind of split up into different areas. Some of Dorchester is part of the original area, and some of it kind of became other parts in the Boston area. So it kind of became part of Boston in pieces, and then you have some areas like Hyde Park, Milton, and Quincy, which are their own areas now, but they used to be part of the original Dorchester. And that's also why the neighborhood of Dorchester Heights, you'd think it'd be in Dorchester, called Dorchester Heights, is actually part of South Boston, because these neighborhoods became part of Boston in different stages. So Dorchester Heights isn't actually part of the neighborhood of Dorchester. It originally was part of the town of Dorchester, but now it's part of Southie. So since Dorchester is so large, you have a lot of neighborhoods within Dorchester and a lot of different communities and lifestyles that all kind of have their own style. I mean, honestly, I could do a 10-minute video on each different neighborhood in Dorchester because some of them are so different. You have a lot of different personalities, different communities, all within the Dorchester area because it is such a big neighborhood when it comes to living Boston. If you're looking closer towards the downtown Boston area, you're gonna have Upham's Corner, you're gonna have Savin Hill. Those are kind of the northern parts of Dorchester, and you can go all the way down south towards Lower Mills, which is the southernmost part of Dorchester, the furthest away from downtown Boston. I mean, all the way down there, you're by Lower Mills. That's where you have Dorchester Park and the Neponset River Conservation, which is a huge outdoor area with conservation land in the south of Dorchester. So Dorchester is kind of split into two different areas. There's North Dot and there's South Dot. And it's basically at kind of a diagonal angle where you have Freeport Street, which leads into East Street, and then Quincy Street. So it's kind of like one continuous line through Dorchester, goes at an angle through Dot, and it's what divides into North Dorchester and South Dorchester. So in the north, closest towards downtown Boston, you have Upham's Corner, which is kind of, where you have a lot of stuff going on, the kind of the commercial business center where you have shops, restaurants, all sorts of stuff in the Upham's Corner part of North Dorchester. And then towards the south, down in South Dorchester, which is a bigger area than North Dorchester, you're gonna have Fields Corner and you're gonna have Codman Square as two fun areas to check out, kind of, where you have stuff going on in the southern part of Dorchester. Down south in Dorchester, right next to Fields Corner, you also have Harrison Square, also known as Clam Point, which is a historic district in South Dorchester. So if you're someone who has an appreciation for, historic homes, you will see a lot of these really beautiful Victorian historic homes in this little neighborhood of South Dorchester. It's kind of like its own area. Clam Point has a very unique and fun personality in South Dorchester. Now, through both parts of Dorchester, north and south, Dorchester Ave is really the main road going through that you want to know about, because this is where you have your restaurants, bars, shops, grocery stores, all that kind of stuff is located along Dorchester Ave, which is kind of, the main artery going through Dorchester as far as stuff to do, shopping, all that kind of stuff. So Dorchester Ave will take you all the way from South Dorchester, if you live down by Lower Mills, all the way into downtown Boston. It'll take you right into the downtown financial district. Now, one thing you might notice living in Dorchester, and I've definitely noticed this with my clients who move to Dorchester, is that a lot of people that live in Dorchester don't work in Dorchester. They live in Dorchester for the proximity to downtown Boston, so it's easy to get into downtown Boston and Cambridge if you live in Dorchester. Now you might be thinking, Jacob, hold on, Cambridge is on the other side of Boston. How is Dorchester easy to get to Cambridge? The answer is the Red Line. So the Red Line part of the MBTA system is what takes you from down south in Dorchester all the way to Cambridge. So the Red Line goes right through Dorchester. It actually splits in Dorchester. Most of it goes along Dorchester Ave, so the Red Line will take you from down south in Dorchester all the way through downtown Boston, and it'll take you into Cambridge. So depending on, which company you work for or where you work in Boston, whether you work in the financial district, downtown Boston, or if you work in, healthcare or tech, whatever, and you're going to Cambridge for work, it's pretty easy to do that living in Dorchester because the Red Line will go from Dorchester into Cambridge. So that's one thing I've noticed that might surprise you. So people who live in Dorchester sometimes will work in downtown Boston or all the way in Cambridge, which looks far to get to, but it's really not if you take the Red Line, which is a huge bonus of living in Dorchester. So it makes things very easy if you're someone who likes to take the public transit system. So if you're wondering, why move to Dorchester, that's part of it, the ease of getting around, but it's also because of that draw of having new development, new options available at lower prices than the expensive parts of Boston. So you have new apartment buildings being built, new condo conversions, rehabbed, updated, nicely finished houses or condos, apartments, all that kind of stuff that's easy to find in the Dorchester area at lower prices than the expensive parts of Boston, like Back Bay, Fenway, and Seaport, if you're looking to come to Dorchester, either for buying a house or for renting a condo or an apartment. So both for renting and buying in Dorchester, you will see a lot of single-family houses, and you'll see a lot of these multifamily units. So the triple-decker, also called the three-decker, you'll hear it called both words, very common in Dorchester. You see a lot of this in Dorchester, same as Worcester. It is a very, typical, common, building you will see in this part of Boston. So you basically have 3 units stacked on top of each other. So it's a 3-unit building. It'll be either all one unit where it's a multifamily building, or they'll kind of separate them off as condos and either sell them out or rent them individually. Especially with these, modern, updated, and rehabbed ones, you'll see, investors and developers come in who buy the entire thing. They'll update it, they'll make it, modern and new on the inside, and then they will sell them off separately as a converted condo from a multifamily unit into a condo, so that each unit has its own deed and you can sell them off separately. So for buying, you could buy a single condo, maybe one of those converted ones. You could buy a single family house, or if you want to, feel like more of an investor, Dorchester, you could buy multifamily. So in that case, you'd be buying the whole, 3-unit building rather than one of the condos within it. If you wanted to convert it later on or rent out the other two, completely up to you. We have a lot of people who, choose both options in Dorchester. And then rental options in Dorchester, you could rent a single family house, you could rent a single unit within one of those 3-unit buildings, or as I mentioned before, there is a lot of commercial and mixed use buildings being developed if you want, kind of an apartment complex. Lots of stuff being built right now. Dot Block is one of the big ones being built right now, so it is a huge mixed use building, apartment complex, so you will see a lot of new rental options as well. So again, if you are moving to Dorchester and you're curious about the neighborhood or another part of Boston or somewhere out in the suburbs, if you want help with that process of buying a house or signing a lease and moving to Boston or somewhere in the suburbs, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send over an email. Let's get in touch, get that conversation started to help you with that process of moving to Boston. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you take care. Have a great day, and I will catch you in the next video right here on the Living Boston channel.